Hi friends, today I am going to be doing a review for book 2 of the Shadow and Bone Trilogy, which is Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. Let's jump in. One of the things that I felt happened in the first book was that things felt very rushed, and if you've read Shadow and Bone or the entirety of Shadow and Bone or anything by Leigh Bardugo, she tends to have a YA audience for the most part, which is fine. So the pacing of things happens in a much faster way. It isn't as calculated as maybe some other things. I also might just be reading into this a little bit too much because the book I read before this was Way of Kings, where things went really slow. But we jump into book 2, and Alina and her tracker BFF love interest Mal are across the sea. They're no longer in Ravka. They're trying to save up money so they can start this new life together. She's run away. She doesn't want to be the Sun Summoner anymore, but she's also feeling weak and sickly because she's not using her power, and she feels like everyone is a threat. She's being watched from every possible angle. Nothing can be trusted. She's not wrong. About 30 pages into the book, the Darkling shows up and you're like, whoa, this is happening really fast. She realizes, 1, he has survived the fold, even though she thought he died. 2, he now has these shadowy monsters that he controls, and she's like, wow, how did those get here? And also, those are terrifying. He sets his shadowy monsters upon her, and she gets a big old scratch in her upper arm, and he tells her, hot tip, that's never gonna heal. Even with Grisha power, sucks to be you. He sits there and goes, cool, cool, cool. This is my life now. It's the worst. I absolutely hate it, but what are we to do? She, Mal, the Darkling, a whole bunch of Grisha, including Genya, who, if you've read book 1, was one of her best friends, end up on this boat. If you've seen the trailer for season 2 of the show, you're gonna kind of have a feeling of what's going on at this point. But at this point, I'm going to start talking about spoilers because this is kind of where we start getting into spoilery material. So if you're not interested in being spoiled for book 2 or possibly for season 2 of Shadow and Bone, I suggest you stop listening now. If you don't care about spoilers, we're gonna jump in. We're on this boat where we are introduced to a new character who I think is possibly the best character of the first 2 books, and his name is Stormhound or Stormhund. He is a privateer for hire. He will work for the highest bidder, and it is his job to help secure Alina for the Darkling, and that's all we know when we first meet him. We come to realize very quickly that the Darkling has a plan because turns out Maritsova Stag was not the only amplifier out there. There are others, and they want to go after the second one, and the Darkling realizes that Mal is probably the best tracker in existence, and he's going to be the one to lead them there. And the one that they're going after is out on the water, so it makes sense that they would be out on this boat at sea, and they're searching for this mythological sea dragon, and they want to find him. Well, at least the Darkling wants to find him. The animal is known as the sea whip. I believe its actual name is Rusalier or Rusali. I'm not entirely sure how you say it. I don't listen to audiobooks. We encounter the sea whip really early on into the story. Basically, the Darkling has threatened Mal and Alina and vice versa, and Mal agrees to help track the amplifier and they can kill it. Of course, he doesn't really believe it's real at first, but the Darkling reminds him like, hey, the stag was real, so why wouldn't this one be real? And then things kind of start happening rather quickly. 6 days into their journey, the sea whip is spotted. It is harpooned. The poor thing is in agonizing pain. But then a switcheroo happens and we find out that the privateer isn't working for the Darkling. He's working for somebody else who's paying him more money. Who could it be? We'll find out soon. We see Mal and Alina escape from the Darkling while Genya gets left behind along with these shadowy monsters. One of his main men, Ivan, gets killed in the process, which, like, everyone's happy that Ivan's dead, I feel like. Is anyone sad that Ivan's dead? Because I wasn't. We see them escape, and it's all good until Alina realizes that she needs to kill the sea whip and take on the amplifier, because even though no living person has had more than one amplifier, she realizes it can be done, it needs to be done, it's the only way to take down the Darkling. So she kills the sea whip, which is rather sad. I don't like reading about any animal dying, be it mythological, a real animal, anything like that. I really had a hard time during season 1 with the scene of them killing the stag. I anticipate that I am not going to like in season 2 them killing the sea whip, but she takes some of the scales and he has a grisha, the privateer has a grisha, that can form it to her skin, similar to how the antlers became a collar. She now wears the scales on her wrist and has 2 amplifiers and now is able to wield crazy amounts of power. Our privateer Stormhound decides that he wants them to come with him. He says if they are not interested in his buyer or who is supporting his venture to bring her to him, that they can leave and he will have a ship take them anywhere in the world. So they find out that they're going back to Ravka, and he kind of pulls a switcheroo on them again and takes them through the fold because he wants to test out his flying machine. He is able to work with fabricator Grisha, and he has had a boat basically changed into a boat plane, and it soars through the fold. But of course, there are still the Volcra in the fold that start attacking them. Alina has to use her power, and she has this weird encounter while in the fold that she sees the face of the darkling, and it freaks her out because she's never had anything like that happen before. This causes the boat plane to almost crash, and when they land on this beach, they are swarmed by all of these guards of the army. And she goes, well, we're screwed now because Mal's a deserter and I'm the sun summoner who tried to flee. But no, wait, there's more. Turns out that our privateer is in fact the second son and Prince Nikolai of Ravka. And that's what saves them. He wants Alina to marry him because they can solidify a crazy good alliance, and he wants to overthrow his brother and become king of Ravka when his father dies. Alina is completely turned off by this plan. She thinks that he cannot be trusted at all, and of course she's not interested in anyone but Mal, but decides that she will go with him back to the little palace, or Al's Alta as the city is called, and she will take control of the Grisha and become leader of the Grisha, kind of how the Darkling was leader of the Grisha previously. This is where things kind of get a little bit more interesting, I find, in this book, because there's more politicking that goes on, and I found that Leigh Bardugo did a good job of writing this type of writing. I like political fantasy. I think it's one of the things that Brandon Sanderson does well in his books that I like the best about his books, and I enjoyed it in this book too. When we have Alina arrive to the little palace, there's kind of a power struggle between her and some of the Grisha that have remained. Some of the Grisha have remained, others fled and defected. Some went with the Darkling, others have become refugees. Alina learns that the Apparat, aka priest from the first book, teamed up with the Darkling. Everything is kind of in chaos right now, and Alina is trying to figure out how to best mitigate the situation and manage everyone and get everything under control so they stand a chance to defeat the Darkling and his new shadow army that she has no idea how they're going to defeat, because if they attack you and Grisha medicine can help you, what chance do they have? This part of the book reintroduces us to some old characters. We see Zoya come back, Sergei, a few of these characters, but we're also introduced to some new characters in this book. We have these twins who are Grisha that end up becoming bodyguards of Alina. That I liked their characters. They work alongside Mal. Mal is very unhappy at the little palace. He really wanted to return back to the army. It seems like he finds purpose in being a tracker, and he's just a certified bodyguard at this point, and he doesn't have any joy in it, and there's no real passion behind it besides keeping Alina alive, which of course, because he loves her, he's quite passionate about. But because this is a YA novel, we are going to get into these romantic tropes where he said, she said, and they're gonna have a falling out a few times, and that kind of weaves its way through the story. And this part I'm not as interested in, but I see why she put it in there. I just didn't find it all that interesting. One of the mysteries that we are left with from book 1 is what happened to Bagra, who is the Darkling's mother. We find out that her punishment was that he had her eyes ripped out so she can't see. She's just got these gaping black holes, but she refuses to help Alina at this point. She feels like they're doomed, so there's no real point in helping her. She had told her to run. Alina failed at that. It is what it is. Alina has a really hard time trying to get all the Grisha to work together. In the Darkling's army of Grisha, it was very much that you hung out with your type of Grisha. If you were a Heartrender, you were with them. If you were a Squaller, you were with them. And in Alina's new modified version of this, everyone kind of gets together and helps each other and learns, and everyone is trying to learn how to fight. One of the main fabricators, whose name is David, who put the collar on Alina in book 1, is a bigger part of this book. He tries to create this mirror plate contraption that's put on top of the building so that when Alina casts her rays of sunlight, that it will destroy the Volcra and the shadow creatures. Not the Volcra, because the Volcra are just in the fold, but it will destroy these new shadow figures that the Darkling has created. They all kind of realize that they don't stand much of a chance, but they start to work together and build a camaraderie with each other that I thought was really good, and I liked this part of the book. I thought it was good. One of the main side plots of the book that takes place is Nikolai and his brother Vasily. And Nikolai is trying to convince his elder brother that he's not going to want to rule. His brother goes out of his way to try to prove Nikolai wrong, and in the process essentially condemns most of Ravka to be slaughtered because they had been keeping an eye out on where the Darkling was, and because of this arrangement that Vasily makes, it screws over everyone living in Ravka outside of the little palace, Os Alta, and it kills most of the Grisha in his path, unfortunately. The end of the book is where things really start culminating. It's about the last 40 pages or so. The apparat throughout this whole story has built up this cult surrounding Alina, and we realize that the twins that have been working for her are actually part of this cult, but they do believe she is a saint, but they want to save her. And when the Darkling shows up with his shadow army, they try desperately to get her out of there, and they do, but in the process, before this all happens, Alina pretends to go with the Darkling. She realizes that their magic is very much intertwined. In the book, it's something along like attracts like calls to like, I think is what it was. You are pulled to that person that you are most similar to, and unfortunately for Alina, that person for her is the Darkling. She starts creating these shadow monsters when she's in an embrace with him, pulling on his magic because she realizes that it's not the typical Grisha magic that creates this. It's this different type of magic, and in the process, it's killing them, but she's pulled away at the last minute. She doesn't succeed in killing him, and the book ends with her being taken off to the apparat in a place where she feels that she's being held hostage. And all the while, this whole book, she knows that there's a third amplifier out there, the Firebird, and she's consumed by wanting to get this third amplifier. With each new amplifier she takes on, her personality is slowly changing. She's becoming darker, angrier, and much more obsessive of control and power and defeating the Darkling, but also succumbing to the Darkling. And I thought that was kind of an interesting relationship in this book. All in all, I really liked this book. I feel geared up for season 2. I understand that the show and the book are probably going to be quite different based on the fact that season 1 was different. The book doesn't have any of the crows. The crows are their own duology, so it'll be interesting to see how they kind of weave these stories together, if it's good, if it's not so good. Either way, I'll be watching. I'm excited to do a compare and contrast of how the book and the show are different, which will come out later this week. But you can let me know in the comments if that's something you're interested in. Also, if you've read the trilogy, which of the books was your favorite? I'm curious to know. I am eager to actually now read the third book. Initially, after book 1, I wasn't super excited to jump into book 2 or book 3, but I'm happy to say that that is now changed. If you would like to help support me, you can hit like and subscribe. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram, you can find me at Fantasy Awash. And as always, I will see you next time. Bye.